to welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and we are back from our Thanksgiving weekend at my grandma's. I would have filmed earlier, but there was some reading I wanted to get done, and of course I had to put everything away or at least take everything out of the car. And then we had all these packages, because my mom and I started our Christmas shopping for everybody on, via Amazon. So, and then we got stuff from earlier, so I didn't get, and I didn't get a chance to film. And I was gonna film a TBR video, but then it's the same thing. Every time I look at my shelves, I'm thinking, oh, I want to read that one, and oh, that one too, and oh, I gotta read that one. Oh, I gotta come back to that one. And then I feel overwhelmed and anxious and frustrated with myself. And then I brought new books with me to my grandma's, and this is what I do whenever I go on vacation because, I can't narrow down what I want to bring with me. And, as I've said before, I probably don't need to bring as many as I do because I don't get a lot of reading time. I've said this before at my grandma's, there's really no comfortable place for me to get any reading done. And then my sister, there are more comfortable places, but then we're always doing something. Or the only time I might get reading time is when the kids, go to school because they're of school age. So it's a few hours window but then I want to, get on YouTube and watch booktube videos and stuff like that. So I gotta decide, and I always end up giving into watching booktube. And I even tried always at my grandma's be like, read first thing in the morning, and I totally failed at that. I did not read, and yesterday I didn't read at all because I was thinking, oh, we were leaving yesterday. I thought we were, but then, my mom comes home from taking my grandma to her doctor's appointment, and she's, telling there's stuff that she wants to do for my grandma, and, clean the house up after our staying there, and which would take a long time. So my dad was like, let's just go ahead and leave tomorrow morning, as in today, this morning. So we did get, which worked out because we got home in the afternoon when we left yesterday, we wouldn't get home until late. I mean, at least I don't have to go to work. I didn't have to be at work today, and I don't have to be at work tomorrow either, and they could always call me. But I get this stupid message on my computer that pops up every time now. I can't get rid of it. So we got home this afternoon, but like I said, I didn't really get a chance to do any, I didn't, get a chance to really I did get a chance to get some reading, but I didn't get a chance to film or anything. So I just decided to, until I can think of my TBR, figure out what I want to focus on, which I'll probably be overly ambitious and pick a bunch of 10, 20 books out and have to narrow it down, or not narrow it down until we're going, if we go out of town for Christmas or something. That's my whole process. That's how my process is. So I'm gonna do a quick video. I hope you guys are cool with this video and don't mind it, or aren't bored or anything, or still enjoy it, but I thought I would list all the books that I've started to read and then put down on my shelf and haven't come back to and needs to come back to, because I do want to read them, but most of these books are super long books, 500 plus page books, and again, I've said this before, I'm always thinking about the books that won't take me as much time to read, and some of these are also rereads, and I feel guilty about reading a reread, especially if it's a long one. So first, one of the ones I just realized I did not write down, I forgot to write down, is this book. I got this last Christmas, the Noli Me Tangere. I still don't know how to say that. My grandma didn't tell me how to say it. This is a book, a classic from the Philippines. She told me how to say it, but then I totally, I can't remember. I have to hear it in my head and multiple times to really for it to to eventually stick. I'm so much better at remembering movies and TV shows than stuff that happens in books. Like details in books I don't remember as much, but details in TV shows and movies I remember really easily because I get the visual and it's easier to, not that it's not, I mean, obviously it's not hard to read a book. Books take it does take a little bit more time. In the movie, you know, you kind of have more control, with a movie or a TV show, it doesn't take, I mean, it's still, there is a, it still takes a length of time, but I know it just doesn't feel like it takes as long, and then I can do multiple stuff when have a movie playing, like I can be on the computer while watching a movie, especially if I watch the movie multiple times, which is not how I watch movies, my favorite movies. Um, so it's just easy, and I get the visual and everything, and I watch them a billion times, so it's just easier for me to remember things like movies and TV shows, and like the details and all that. Um, so I still do not remember how to pronounce this title. But I mean, I also wish I had brought the book that time when my grandmother's nephew was visiting. Um, not recent, but one of the visits from before he was visiting from the Philippines. And I almost wish I had brought this book with me to ask him how to pronounce it, but I probably still don't remember. But this is about. But I had started this book, and then I put it down, and it's not even that long. I mean, it's in the 500 page mark, I think. Or, I mean, actually it's not. So in this case, the length is not much of an excuse, because like the part where at the end where it defines words and like some of the Tagalog in the back is like that ends on page, like the last page of the book is 452. So I don't, in that case, I can't really use that excuse. And the chapters are not that long. It's just I got distracted by other books. But I want to get back to this and read this book, and I want to get the sequel at some point. I mean, who knows? I might get this. It is on my wish list, I think. Either that, or I took it off and I just put on the just left it on my thrift books wish list. I don't know, but yeah, I feel, as I said last time, I shared these books with you, these books from the Philippines, or about the Philippines with you guys. I was, saying I feel like I need to read more literature about the Philippines because it's part of my heritage. So I want to pick this up, and I'm even more motivated to pick it up now, a little bit like, in honor of my grandmother, but I just haven't yet. So this is definitely one I need to pick up. I mean, I'm thinking maybe pick it up in December. If not in December, maybe January. But sooner rather than later. Okay, that I forgot to write down the list. So that's the only one that I have to show you visually. The rest of them, because there's so many on this list, I don't really. I mean, there's a couple of them, at least two more that I have down here on the floor with me, but the other ones I don't. It would just be, I would have a lot of piles of books here. So okay, so next is, so first there's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is alternative history with fantasy elements. It's really fun. It kind of is written like, well, my first thought when I was reading was Dickens, but a lot of people compare it to the Regency and Jane Austen novels, and I guess that's the time period it's in, during the Regency period. But I don't know, I just kept thinking the writing style reminded me of Dickens. So next we had the first nonfiction I ever received, that I had wanted, which is the Walt Disney biography by Neil Gabler. But that's a chunkster. It's a 500 page book. But again, it's not that long because a lot of it towards the end is like notes and references to all the material that Neil Gabler used to write the biography. I mean, and I thought about it when we talked about when Florida came up, when we decided not to go to London. We're like, oh, let's go to Florida instead. And I could have brought it with me because since we weren't flying overseas, I figured, I did think about bringing a book with me, which I did, but it wasn't that one. London Labours, London Poor, that's the one I attempted to start reading in Nonfiction November. But it's one of those, it's a lot of giving facts and stuff, and facts are interesting and intriguing, but books, nonfiction, have to pick the perfect time. It doesn't have to be perfect time, but the right mood for me to read them. And I had read 2 nonfiction books, so I'm eventually get to the point where I can read nonfiction, a lot more than just 2 nonfiction books. Okay, and then we have Priory of the Orange Tree, which its prequel book just came out, Day of Fallen Night, or something like that. But since, I wanted to read that one first before I read the new one. And plus, I'm waiting for the paperback anyway, because Priory of the Orange Tree, my copy of that is paperback. Name of the Rose, this is historical fiction, a bit of a mystery. I love the premise of this one. I think it's so cool that it takes place, I think it's so intriguing that it takes place in an abbey. And like, I love stories. This is why I like Dan Brown. I know people have their issues with Dan Brown, and he's not historically accurate with his information. A lot of it's made up, I think. But that whole premise is really cool. The idea of a conspiracy in history that, has been hidden. And I feel like The Name of the Rose has that kind of secret, hidden aspect of history that they're trying to cover up. And then we have Clash of Kings, which this is one I have to show you. I don't have all the books yet in this format, in this size yet, but I'm getting them, over time I will be getting them. Ideally either I like to receive them as gifts or get them via thriftbooks.com. That's where I get most of them. Although the third book is a different edition, like an older edition, like 80s or, early 80s, 90s edition. I can't remember what that one's called at the moment. I have that. I also forgot to put John Adams on this list. That's another one is John Adams' biography. And I made a lot more progress in that one earlier this year, which I feel very proud of that. But I gotta pick it up again either I'm just gonna say probably next year. I probably won't pick it up in December. So Shadow Rising, the 4th book in the Wheel of Time series. I'm still interested in reading that. I know that a lot of people say in the middle of the series there's a bit of a slog, but I'm still interested in reading it. And who knows, I might actually not notice the slog or not mind it. I keep saying this is one of the ones that I keep saying I'm gonna pick up soon, and I want it because I don't want to drag out the series, read each book with years in between each book. So I need to pick that one up. So I feel like I should, that's why maybe I should consider reading that one in December. And then I can just do Clash of Kings in January. Because I can't read both of those books in December. It would be just too much. Okay, then we have Dombey and Son, the Dickens I chose to read next. Oh, and actually I should have put on this list also, I did start my reread I think earlier last year or in 2022, I did start a reread of both of Great Expectations and Oliver Twist. But I haven't picked them up. And they're not long, so there's no excuse for those two. But Dombey and Son, I've never read. Those 2 are rereads. That's the other battle going on in my head where I'm like, I reread this one, so I should focus on the one I haven't read. So Dombey and Son, and another author where I gotta be in the right mood. Even though I love Dickens, his writing styles, I have to be in the mood for his writing. And so I gotta get to that one. And then after that one, I'll probably read Our Mutual Friend. Next is Silmarillion, which I do have. And actually to get me motivated to start my Lord of the Rings readathon or my Tolkien readathon, because I have a couple of books that aren't Lord of the Rings related. I was watching videos talking about the Silmarillion and, the challenges of reading it, because it's a little different. It's very different from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and how it's written. It's almost written like a nonfiction. One person said on one of those videos I watched That's, if you can read the King James Bible, you can read this. Now, I have not read the King James Bible. And I also watched a video that was like his collection of, this person's collection of all their Tolkien books. And some of them are so, I really like them. I wish I could justify buying some of those like deluxe editions, but I can't, And I would be embarrassed to ask for them as a gift. But yeah, they were really nice and I secretly want them. I was actually looking at pictures on the internet, like showing what the deluxe edition, because he was only showing the spines, so you didn't get the whole thing. And some of them were also, he had at least 2 of them were still in their shrink wrap. And one person I decided to look at pictures on Google, and one was referred to in a picture that was on a blog about saying collecting Tolkien books they labeled as pathetic, and that just pissed me off, because it was like, first of all, you have no right to judge this person, and second of all, there is a difference between book collecting and books and book dealers. Book dealers are the ones that I think, I'm not sure, but from a couple of fiction books I've read, the person that was about book dealing, the person, implied that book dealers, all they care about is the sale and the price and what it looks like. They don't care about reading the book. But I think book collectors actually do intend to read them. I mean, they might not read all of them within like a year or whatever. And I don't think it's anyone's business. If someone wants to collect these fancy editions, oh, that's embarrassing. If someone wants to collect fancy editions, really pretty editions, even editions that aren't in other languages that they don't speak, if that's their business. And those books are beautiful oftentimes. Like, it's an art. Like, what books look like is an art. Especially when someone goes through the trouble, a publisher goes through the trouble of designing these covers and putting art in there and, all that. Because it takes a lot of work. If you really look at them, it's a lot. So I can't blame them for charging so much money that not everyone can afford them. So yeah, that comment was like, and I was just punishing myself reading that. But I spent most of the time just reading people's responses to that, and most people agreed. I mean, there was one person who did try to defend the person's criticism of collecting books. They made some good points. I just don't agree. And most people on that blog didn't agree either, that were commenting on that blog. I think it was a blog. But yeah, that's just, it's just one of the things I looked at to kind of inspire me to start my Tolkien readathon, because last year I did my reread of The Hobbit, so I could do, a video about it and like a review and all that, because I did read it before the movies started coming out, but I didn't remember enough to really fairly decide if I agree with most people and say the Hobbit movies are bad. They're very different. It's a very different choice, but I still enjoy them. But I'm known for enjoying adaptations that aren't good adaptations. So, I'm just probably gonna stay away from the Rings of Power, because people hate that series so much, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I like it and then I constantly have to deal with people criticizing and be like, oh, it's terrible, and even if they make very intelligent discussions on why it's terrible, I still don't want to. It's just gonna be too stressful, because I'm gonna feel bad for liking it. So I'm just not gonna watch it. If my friend Terry wants to watch it, she can watch it, but she probably feels the same way. Not exactly the same way, but she probably doesn't want to watch it either, because, but yeah, I'm on chapter 8 in this, and I debate about starting over with it, but I'm a good chunk of the way in, so yeah, that's on there. Okay, now I think that's all the ones that I don't have down here on the floor. Okay, so, Lord of the Rings, of course, I did start after I bought that book, which was around the time that Terry was visiting a couple summers ago. I did start reading it. So I got past the chapter with the mushrooms. And then we have The Moonstone, The Woman in White, and I think I also had started reading that other, I can't remember what it's called, the one with the two guys that have the same name. Started that one. Those are all by Wilkie Collins, so that's one of the authors I, would like to focus on in 2024. And then we have Ladies Oddly Secret, which I started reading that one because it was like, oh, it's not that long. And it's not. So again, this is another one where I can't use the excuse of page length. It's just more that kind of the writing of older books. Sometimes I have to find the right mindset to get into them and just start reading that kind of books. I might save that for February. Okay, then The Witching Hour is the first book in the Mayfair Witches trilogy. I now finally have all the books, so I have no excuse there, except for they're super long. And I also got another book, Ramesses the Damned, by Anne Rice as well. So may she rest in peace, Anne Rice. And then we have Damascus Gate. Now, Damascus Gate was one of the ones I brought with me when we went to visit my grandma. Oh, and I just realized another one I didn't put on here is that I thought about bringing with me, but then I changed my mind. That one is, what is it called? I think it's Anglo-Saxon Attitudes. By Angus Wilson, which is really good. And it actually has really nothing to do with Anglo-Saxons. I don't think. It's more to do with this professor is recalling his past, and he remembers he was I think he was an archaeologist when he was a young man, or he was part of like a dig or something that turned out to be a hoax, and he's feeling guilty about that. And he knows who's responsible for the hoax. But it also talks about his life with his wife and how he was also having an affair. And they have a very weird relationship, very weird dynamic, because his wife knows about the woman he's having an affair with, and she's just trying to be all cool with it, supposedly, but not in a way that's the guy likes, her husband likes. It's more annoying. For him, it's annoying. And I kind of understand, because she's trying very hard to act like everything's fine and everything's okay and it doesn't bother her. She's overly accepting it, and not in a good way. And then we have Quicksilver, which is another one I brought with me. That's kind of about science, starting the Puritan era and how it has advanced. And that's a lot of reason why people don't love, a lot of people did not love this book. I think it's part of a trilogy. So far it's really interesting, and it's talking about philosophy and people's, scientists who have proof about things, and then the scientists who believe things they cannot prove, like love, for instance. You can't prove love exists with it tangibly anyway. You can prove love exists via showing how people respond and what people do, but you don't have scientific proof about love. And there is a bit of a discussion about that. This guy who's a scientist is in America, but he's not American, and he's run into this young boy who's very smart for his age, and he's almost too smart. And the main character is worried about that, because this is during the Puritan era where people were getting burned for advanced thinking. So far I think it's interesting. I can see where some of the discussions would get kind of boring though. And then we have Bleak House, which is a reread. I was excited to start that one, especially because I got the cloth bound copy of it. And then Middlemarch, also cloth bound copy, and that is also a reread. I really like that one. Under the Dome is my Stephen King. One of the Stephen King's books that I did start reading. Although I don't know if I should count that one because I read like maybe the first chapter of it, first like 2 chapters, and that's not a lot if you look at the length of most Stephen King books. Because there were other books that I was thinking about putting on here, but I decided not to because I only read like maybe a chapter or 2. War and Peace, and actually, Tolstoy's not that hard to read. It's just the names, for instance, are really hard, and his books are super long, so he's not really that hard to read. I mean, it's still the writing style is still very different from Stephen King, for instance, but it's not as hard as people. It's just a lot, and the names can be confusing and hard to read. And of course, names are in, Russian. So if you don't know Russian, you can stumble there. Luminaries, and that's historical fiction, which I need to pick up and continue with. Again, a lot of these books, I feel like I need to pick them up and read a good chunk of them and let myself get back into the story. The Count of Monte Cristo is my reread. I've been especially wanting to reread and continue my reread of that one for reasons. I forgot to write the whole title. The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morden. I started that last spring, my reread, because that is a reread, last spring. But I decided to first read The Distant Hours, finish my reread of that one, and then I would come back to The Forgotten Garden because I've already reread that twice. You guys know that's a reread, and I've been meaning to reread that one so that I could do a video comparing the newer movie adaptations, part 1 and part 2, to the book. Because the last video I did on it was kind of comparing the 2 different adaptations. Comparing both, sort of comparing them to the book, but focusing on just comparing the 2 adaptations and the differences between them. The Eyes of the Dragon is another Stephen King book. That was one I kept going back and forth with if I wanted to, opted not to read it or not. But you know what? It's fantasy. I love fantasy. And it's the first book that introduces is the beginnings of The Man in Black, I think. And it's not that hard to read. And it was written for his daughter, actually, King's daughter, Naomi. The Three Musketeers. Because, I love The Count of Monte Cristo, so I've been wanting to come back, try The Three Musketeers again, because I like the movie adaptations. And of course, there's so much more going on in the book than the adaptations. Wives and Daughters. I think that's Glasgow book. I get to that one. Wizard and Glass, another Stephen King. It's the 4th book in the Dark Tower series. The Stand, so I have quite a few Stephen King on here. The Stand, I need to come back to that one as well, although that's another one that I started reading it, and I didn't get very far my start of rereading it. I didn't get very far. Because now when I say reread, I mean because I didn't finish it the first time. And then the Recognitions, that one is definitely a big commitment, and that's one of those ones with the writing style that's very different than what I'm used to. There's that one, Brothers Karamazov. I was just watching one of Jennifer Brooks' videos, and she's having the same problem that I'm having with Brothers Karamazov, where it's kind of boring at points, and it's hard, and it's a struggle to get into. So I need to get back to that one, but I do want to finish it because I bought one of the special copies. Not like super special, like not hardback, but that's not like a generic copy. And then Paradise Lost and Divine Comedy. I'm still struggling with epic poetry, but I do want to get back to those, get into those again. And some of these are also books that I want to be able to talk about and have deep conversations with. But I think I do kind of struggle with comprehension. It's not my strongest skill. Since I was a kid. I mean, it's not like I have zero comprehension, obviously, but it's a struggle, especially now that, with some of these older works. And now that I'm not in school anymore, like I've been out of school for a long time, and I almost wish I was a student again, but there's no guarantee they're going to be reading any of the books that I have. Moby Dick, I attempted to start last summer, I think, or maybe 2 summers ago. I want to pick that one. And again, I was always intimidated by that one, but then I started reading it, and it's like, it's not that hard to read. It's still intimidating because it's considered a classic, but it's only, I think the hardest part is getting through the sections on whales that not everybody's interested in. And I think that's the thing that turns people away from it, is that whole section. But once you get past that, I think it's not. I haven't got to that point yet. I think I started to get to that point, but like I said, it's not that hard. Hey, Matilda read it. Which is so funny every time I watch Matilda, or like when I watch the musical that became a movie, that they made into a movie, and reveals what books that she's read. I'm like, how? You're 6 years old? Like, well, I think she's older than 6. I think she's probably like 10 or 11, maybe 8 or 10. But still, she's reading those books? My nephews are not reading that kind of stuff. I'm like, how the heck are you reading those? But if she can read it, I can read it. But although like I believe that she might be on the autism spectrum, and and we're seen as very intelligent. The Children of Time, which I've talked about before, as it's one of the intimidating books because of the sci-fi element. But I do want to try it again because I still want to get into sci-fi. Just taking it slowly. The Huguenot Connection. I read the first book in the trilogy, so I want to read the next book. But the next novel is a little bit longer. Both 2 and 3 are a bit longer. Miss Marjorie Banks by Margaret Oliphant. I've read a little bit, and it's pretty good so far. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Now that's one of those ones that's very intimidating. It's a big commitment. And it's also, it doesn't help that it's older nonfiction. So, and that, again, writing style is a little bit different. Little Women, I started my reread of that last Christmas. And you guys, if you've read Little Women, you know that it's not that one. It's not like it's that hard to read. It's one of those books where you gotta be into sentimentality and saccharine and all, you gotta be in that kind of mindset. And it's not for everybody, I feel like. The movies, I think, you can get into the movies more easily than the book. Shadow of Night, another book from a series I started, but I think the first one is still my favorite in that trilogy. Although, well, actually, I think it has 4 books now. So there's that one. Mor'du, this is one of the ones I brought with me. But this one, I just started this one, so, I just put it on there because I am in the middle of it. But, it's not, it's not as hard, and I could probably get through it. It's not one of those ones that's all super long, or, the writing is confusing. It's just I put it on there because I started it. Lonesome Dove, which is another one I brought with me to my grandma's because I figured, why not read it around Thanksgiving? This is a Western so far. I'm getting into it. I wasn't sure if I would like it because it's a Western. But so far, I'm getting into it. It's pretty good. Life and Fate. This is a Russian novel, Vasily Grossman. This is about World War II. It takes place during World War II. So I think Stalin's reign. This is about that. And then I wasn't sure if I should put these books on here because they're short story collections. So of course I'm not done with them. But I put Lovecraft and Poe collections on there. But like I said, I don't know if you can really count them because they're short story collections, or in Poe's case, poems as well. So is it really fair to put them on there? Because it's not like I don't have to read them. They're just short stuff. So it's, it ends. It's not like, I put it down and then, I'm still in the middle of the same story. So I guess you really can't count those. So that is my list of all the books that I've started and have not continued with, but need to, and I do want to. I did pick up this evening, continue with, I didn't bring this with me, my grandma's, but I did read 2 chapters this evening of this book. I'm almost done with that one more chapter. It's just they're long chapters. I feel like there's a lot of books where they don't have as many chapters, but then they take advantage of that and make the chapters really long. Which I don't mind because it's very readable and there's a lot of interesting, engaging stuff going on, and being inside of Uhtred's head is very entertaining. And his thoughts on people. And I think, I'm starting to like war books. I'm starting to not mind them. In fact, there are some of them I would love to reread, like All Quiet on the Western Front. I would love to reread that one. Because I read it for school, and at the time I was like, oh, this is so boring, but I'm reading it because I have to read it for school. And then we didn't really even talk about it in class, I don't think. So I do want to reread that one at some point. But yes, I'm almost done with this one. Last chapter. Hopefully they won't call me tomorrow. Knock on wood. Hopefully they won't ask me if I could come in. Because then they will limit my reading time. I mean, I guess I could bring that book with me to work and read a couple pages during my 15-minute break if they call me. But I hope they stick to not calling me, not needing me. I mean, it is Wednesday, so it shouldn't be too bad. And the day that it is going to be crazy, is the day I'm coming back to work. So anyway, so I just wanted to give you guys a little something, a little video, get back into the swing of things. But so I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified. I'd love to hear what you guys are reading right now, though, share in the comments below. I mean, and then also, if you guys have a similar problem to mine, then please feel free to share. I would love to know that I'm not alone and have the same problem as other people. But anyway, I will talk to y'all later. Hope you're enjoying your reading. All right, bye.